This is a segment we like to call User Stories, where we'll be digging into some interesting questions on Reddit that we can tackle. Squada. What? Squeda? Squada? The future of our role. I truly believe there is going to be a new role where those of us that actually use our product manager skills and build the software are going to flourish. No one has spent their careers learning about their customers, working with stakeholders in business, clearly defining requirements, parentheses, this might be the most important piece for where we are fit in agentic coding, deciding what to build and the roadmap to getting there first. The first step for all of you is to go start building using AI. If you're not trying to be an entrepreneur, which I think is a logical next step for a lot of us, then perhaps consider building something for fun to at least get a leg up on others in our role. Maybe big enterprises will still use product managers with the way our role currently works. Maybe this role is better suited for startups to mid-sized companies. I can see corporations moving this direction as well, to be honest. It'll just take them longer. Either way, I think it would do you a lot of good to learn how to use AI coding agents and your product manager skills to build. And I'm sure you agree with this. And I have several thoughts. So many, like, I don't know where to start on this one. I can rip it apart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I necessarily will like it in maybe the way you think I might like it, but I think
Okay.
it falls nicely into, maybe you've convinced me a little bit, like something like a Replit is more frustrating to build a production app than I first thought, right?
Right.
But in a couple of hours, I can test the theory out, right? I can build a quick UI, I can crunch some data and stuff like that. And I think in this sense, like a PM that's good at that, because you could throw a design very quickly together, right? With the events of like, no, when I push this button, this is what it does. It's almost
Right.
like, because as a non-PM and designer, I find, what are those apps you all use for designing?
Figma.
I Yeah, I just find that
Figma
shit
is
really
frustrating.
frustrating. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think, yes, there are absolutely. So I've seen plenty of data scientists who are in Jupyter notebooks, and the AI agent is right there and just being like, yeah, I can write you the pandas data table that does this really quickly and notice some things for you. Yes, there's a bunch of those kinds of things where if a product person had data access but maybe didn't need to know SQL and some other things, some AI tools that can just help them shortcut to the answers that they need. Sure, maybe hallucination problems still floating out there. Yes, maybe even some prototyping scenarios just to get a whiteboarding idea out of your head into a more consistent structure. There are parts of this, but the thing I don't think is true is actually use our PM skills and build the software. To your point, tools like Replit are not ready to build production code. They simply aren't. You have too many things that you need to know that you wouldn't know as a product manager trying to build something, much less we'll get into some concerns about levels of engineering skill. So no, production code for most companies is not going to be built by these AI agent tools anytime soon. So sure, are there things like you were saying, the product manager can shortcut some things, cannot need to do Figma, cannot need to do some other stuff. I'm open to it. I still hate it for 400 other planet burning, stealing everyone's IP reasons, but sure, maybe there's some versions of it. But no, you're not going to become, I struggle to believe that this is going to get to the point that you're going to actually write production code anytime soon. We're hitting walls with what these tools can do, and I'm just not sold on that.
Yeah, and I think some of my frustration has been like expecting improvements in tech like Replit. I hadn't used it for like a month, and I was really thrown by their perception of how they needed to fix their early versions. So now I'm waiting 20 more minutes for my first version, and it's still making the same mistakes it did, you know,
Yep.
6 months ago. And I'm like,
Yep.
but you made me wait 25 more minutes to tell you this is screwed up.
Right,
So
exactly. At least last time I within 5 minutes was like,
yeah,
okay, you've missed all of this. Yeah, no, it
yeah.
is.
Now it's, instead of telling it 25 times it messed up, I'm telling it once, like the 46 things it messed up. It's
Right.
like,
An
come
hour
on.
later. Right.
An hour later.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not impressed at all with Replit's update. Like, haven't used it since they made those changes.
Yep. Well,
But like you say, that citizen data scientist, right?
Which more
for
product people
PM.
absolutely should be getting into their data, understanding their usage. If you have site analytics and data, like, yes, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm open to helping you figure out. But I also, what I wouldn't like, I would like, so I've used GitHub Copilot a little bit, and I will say I do like the GitHub Copilot basically shows you, okay, here are the 5 files I created and the 3 files I modified. Do you approve what I've done? And so if you're a product person who's going in and saying, I don't know the SQL that I would need to write for this, but I'm trying to learn SQL. So having a thing like Copilot, which is going to do the thing for you, but also give you the opportunity to learn the underlying tech, I think that's interesting because I want the product people to actually learn the SQL. I want them to learn the data model. I want them to learn the data structures as they're going and doing that versus some of these tools, especially the BI tools, are like, type a question and I'll answer it for you. Well, okay, but I'm now dependent on you to answer it for me, and I have no way of proving if you're right or wrong, versus show me what you did to get to that answer, and I can spot check, wait, I don't get why you're doing an outer join versus an inner join. You've limited the data. Like, there's some interesting things there if we would just, I don't know. I think a bunch of people have rushed to roll AI out and just be like, well, you're a dipshit, so I'm going to give you no control. And it's like, no, no, no. There's a version of this. If you guys could start using the Chinese models that use, 95% less energy, there's a version of this that's actually really interesting and could help people get smarter. But instead, you're asking them to turn their brain off and stay. Product managers aren't dumb, but they are unaware of the SQL they need to learn. Help them learn the SQL. I don't know. There's a version of this that's actually good, and we're not doing that version right now.
I got to give the Chinese credit. They're always focused on the environment and good, clean energy and, putting people first, I guess.
I don't know that I would say any of those statements are true, but
No.
there's an interesting, I'm sure I can find this clip and we can do one of our TikTok reactions to this, but there was a group of people, it might have been Eric Schmidt at Google, talking about, well, China doesn't have, Silicon Valley and the investment capital the way that we do, and so they're focusing on different parts of AI. And I'm like, yeah, they don't need to worry about the crazy 200 billion overvaluation of their corporations. Their corporations are state-owned, and what they're focusing on is not having Beijing be polluted full of smog and horrible things. So of course that their entire focus has been, the latest model that they rolled out was the same performance as I think GPT-4 maybe, but at 95% less energy consumption. So they don't need to roll out 9 new nuclear power plants in the next 5 years. Like, they're doing it smarter than us, everything about it. I wish that they weren't a communist autocratic regime, but like their approach makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge, and it's dangerous to say as a conservative, right? But China almost represents perfectly the
It's
way
what Trump
I
wishes
think.
he was. He wishes he was Xi Jinping. He wishes he could just tell people what to think and how to do.
Yeah, and it's also that recognition of, yeah, we'll sacrifice however many hundreds of thousands, millions of people today because the goal is the future. So it's almost like
Terrifying, horrifying.
Yeah. It's
Awful.
almost like we sacrifice generations because I look at a country like that and be like, yeah, they'll probably get to technological utopia before us, right? However, it'll be on the back of hundreds of millions of dead
Right.
in the previous generations, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and
Yeah.
I think there's probably an interesting episode we could do at some point, which is we are effectively in an AI Cold War now with China. And that is the reasoning and the logic behind all of these tech bros going after AI is they believe that one of us is going to come up with the AI superintelligence first. And whoever does, you know, Skynet turning real, you would hope it's either the American Skynet or the Chinese Skynet, both of which are horrifying, but that's the current goal. And so, yeah, a bunch of like people are making really stupid, terrible choices because they think it's this existential threat that China's going to get there first. I don't know. It's a whole episode we should do at some point. I will say the other part I have with this, product managers should learn AI to code, is this is what happens every 5 to 10 years. It's the same thing as evolution keeps making crabs. It's called carcinicization or what is this? Carcinicization, where evolution has made crabs like 4 times because it's just such an efficient bioform or something. Engineering gets in its head every couple of years. We don't need product people. We don't need UX designers. We're going to do all of that ourselves. And it's going to be amazing how efficient our little team of 5 people are, that they don't need any of that stuff. They're going to learn the product and the user requirements, and they're going to talk to clients, and they're going to design all of this. And the engineers are going to be supreme and do all of this. And within a year, what you've done is realized, well, I only have so much time and I don't want to go to that client meeting because I'm bad at client meetings. You go to that client meeting because you're better in front of the clients. And while you already went to that one client meeting, could you go talk to this prospect to figure things out? And it turns into they just make product managers again. And so at some point, this idea that product managers should use AI because you're all going to be engineers at some point. No, that's a bad use of your 40 hours. We've developed these roles for a reason. Having somebody whose job is dedicated to go and hear about problems and figure out how to solve them and work partnership with engineers to do that is where you always end up. So cool, AI is going to have us recreate the product manager again in 5 years. It's stupid.
We're on the subject of crabs. Should we talk about the Bulls logo?
My God. For anyone who wants to know what he's talking about, I will stick it in the video. Yeah, watch us on YouTube, by the way. All of our episodes are now on YouTube. We should do that kind of promotion now that we're doing this thing. We'll stick turn the Chicago Bulls logo upside down. It looks like a crab and something happening to that crab. We're not going for the explicit rating on iTunes, so we'll leave off what is being done to the crab.
Yeah, let's call the crab is being evolved.
God, it's getting some new DNA sources.
Yes. It's Skynet and the crab.
Oh, good grief. All right. Shakathana. Shakathana. Challenge with uncertainty in estimations. Hi, I'm currently facing a challenge where one of our experienced developers consistently refuses to provide estimates for tickets. His reasoning is that he cannot make a reliable estimate because he doesn't fully understand what needs to be done or how the system will respond. As a result, he refuses to estimate at all, arguing that it, quote, will take as long as it takes, and that estimation is irrelevant. How can I help him understand that the purpose of estimation is not to be exact, but to provide a rough approximation of what might be achievable within a given time frame? He remains strongly opposed to giving any form of estimate, no matter how rough. And I think we've all been here, and I think there are degrees of this engineer not being wrong, but the whole point of estimation is you are responsible to other people, to other stakeholders, to clients, to the business, to deliver a thing, and telling them, I don't know, might be in March, might be in June, is not actually helpful. So they've tried to do things to help people provide estimates and frameworks and ways of reducing scope and a bunch of things. And this is the product manager's worst nightmare. I will also say Kanban does solve some of this, because in Kanban, you don't really have to do estimation. What you do is just simply watch how long it takes people to do stories, and then you realize that those stories are too big and you need to break them down, and you start to develop velocity and throughput metrics that help you realize how to scope your stories better so that you don't need to do estimations, and there's a back and forth process that happens there. I don't know. My first question to this engineer would be, have you asked your leadership why you're on 2-week sprints at all then? Because what's the point of a 2-week sprint if you have no way of knowing that you're going to achieve anything in the sprint? The whole point of the sprint is to sprint to the end of the 2 weeks and deliver something. So if you don't think it's possible for you to estimate anything at all, then there's no way you could possibly know that a 2-week sprint is possible.
I'm not sure there's experienced developer. Is this just one of those people where there is no advice we can give this person because it's just some D-bag? I mean, look at the quote. It will take as long as it takes. It doesn't sound like somebody who is putting up a solid argument and then looking to compromise with the team.
Right.
It looks like somebody who's maybe just going to be difficult no matter what. Right.
That is hard. That does feel like maybe the path for you is escalation to your tech lead, to your engineering manager, because it is unacceptable, right? Like you can say that you want to work differently. So, right, like that's not an acceptable answer. An acceptable answer is, I don't think we should work in 2-week sprints because I think we're going to have these challenges. There are acceptable answers, but I refuse to do this in the current framework doesn't work. So I would be escalating to scrum manager, tech lead, somebody to try and say like, well, then something else has to change because this isn't going to keep working.
Yeah, it sounds like a strange environment, right? Like he remains strongly opposed to giving any form of estimate, no matter how rough. Like last
Right.
time when I did something similar, it took me 2 weeks. So let's say 2 weeks.
Right.
That's an estimation, right?
Yep.
Is strongly opposed to giving any form of estimate. I mean, just look at how the world works. Plumber comes over. How long is it going to take to fix my toilet? It'll be some point today. Good. That's an estimation.
Right.
I don't know, a few hours. Cool. All right, a few hours. I'm going to be stuck here for a few hours, but no form of estimation.
Yeah.
Sounds like a difficult character. And we've all met those kinds of engineers before, right?
Yep. Well, I thought there was an interesting sort of discussion in the comments. So there's a deleted user, which I don't think they got so much pushback that they deleted their account, but it was a deleted user. The purpose of estimating is not so much the estimate itself, but the discussion. If he does not understand what needs to be done, talk about what he needs to do to understand, then reconvene, share results, plan again, then estimate. And Flamehorns, amazing username, responds back, oh, can we get away from this old, the purpose of estimating is not so much the estimate itself, but the discussion chestnut. It makes developers feel like they are being manipulated or tricked into something. If you want a discussion, call it a discussion and focus on that. If you want an estimate, call it an estimate and focus on getting an estimate. That the purpose of estimating is not so much the estimate itself, but the discussion bullshit has really detracted from our credibility, which... hard disagree. Absolutely not. You can do both. I can say, I want the discussion so that we can go back and forth on the scope and the effort and what's being asked. And then at the end, I want a fucking estimate. Like, no, you don't get to be like, oh, this, makes us look bad. I'm so tired of engineers are the only ones who are allowed to feel anything. No, everyone has a stake in this. I'm on the hook to go back to the business and say, dipshit over here won't tell me whether it's May or September. What do you think? Like, no, everyone has to participate in this. And yes, I can do both. I can ask for the discussion, and I can say as the goal of the discussion is an estimate. Not that hard. Shut up.
More like lame horns.
My God.
I'm sorry, but the username speaks for itself, right? It sounds like another one of those D-bag developers.
It does.
Oh, can we get away from this older purpose of estimate? Come on.
No.
I've been asked this question 1,000 times, and I've never, ever, ever shied away from saying some form of logic to it. Like, well, last time we did it, there were all kinds of issues because of accounts, and we had to go across a team, and
Right.
that seems slow. We can try to escalate, but that's going to take us a couple of days at best. You just can. I'm sorry. The days of engineers being D-bags over this stuff, you don't want the AI replacing a lot of these guys. I do.
Yeah,
because it's like,
right.
they were the elite for so long. And I should say we were, because you and I are both engineers. We've both been developers, right? Still coding today. But we never had this kind of attitude, right? About estimates and...
There is a little bit of like, okay, maybe now I do want this product manager to go find some AI tools and write this guy out of a job. No, it is. Well, and like this, I think goes back to our complaints about Agile all the time, which is, what is the point of the retro for this guy? If this guy in every single retro isn't saying estimates are killing us, our system is too complex, we can't possibly predict what we're going to run into when we peel back this layer, Scrum is the wrong process for us. There is absolutely a valid conversation that these two people could be having, and they're not. They're just being dicks. So stop being dicks and go have the correct conversation.
Right. And if you think about it, how many years do we have? We got like 45, 50 years collective in the industry, right? When was the last time you sat with an engineer who said something like that? I can't remember.
Right.
I can't remember that. I've worked with some real insane engineers, but I don't think I've ever had anybody sit on a call and hear someone say, I'm not going to estimate. I refuse to estimate.
No, they'll
No.
complain about the risk, they'll complain about the unknowns, which
Yeah.
is all correct. Yeah, you can absolutely include that. Uh, but yeah, no, you gotta play the game. The game is stupid and you gotta play it.
Yeah, and the bullshit has really detracted from the credibility. Come on.
No, it sounds like your credibility because you don't know how to have this
Y
conversation with engineers.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
We are in a
yeah.
spicy mood with some of these people today, apparently.
I'm just so excited that, like, engineers are realizing, like, what they do. Because you remember the old saying, you say, "I can do what you do and what I do, but you can't do what I do." That was such a software engineer thing to say, like, 10, 15 years ago, and now it's like the AI is like, "Well, I can do what you do. You can't do what I do."
I
I
mean,
kinda I'm gonna enjoy the fall from grace for a lot of these guys.
for some of them, let's not
That's
slander
what I said,
all
a lot.
engineers.
That's what I said, a
Lots.
lot of those
Okay.
guys.
All
Not
right.
not most, but they know
Several
who they
many
are.
of them are giant pains in the ass like this.
Yes, they are.
Yes. Bob Dolomite. I don't know that product management really exists. I cut a bunch of his rambling here, so I'm going to skip to the part. Each of these orgs had PMOs that resourced for IT projects, and they were all switching to Agile, then rebranded their project managers as product managers, started slamming Kanban boards and ceremony meetings on calendars, but still did the same thing. Take orders from business leaders and make the software do a thing. Cultural inertia is a motherfucker. I'm extremely well-rounded in my practice. I figure out an org's data structure and build my own reports analysis. I do interviews. I know what moves the needle. But alas, I'm an implementation manager of someone else's half-baked bullshit idea.
There's that word again. Bullshit. Yeah.
I understand this guy's sentiment. It is frustrating to find yourself in an organization that is claiming to do a bunch of things when really it is shiny object syndrome, it is sales driven, it is leaders coming up with a thing without any proof that the market's going to want it. Been in those orgs. I appreciate that being in that type of organization is difficult. My bad news for Bob, wow, we are really spicy today. My bad news for Bob is it's your fault a little bit, not 100%. Bob is in an organization that is mostly the organization's fault. Bad leadership, bad choices, bad pivot to agile without any kind of plan. But Bob's also got to take a little bit of responsibility. The really good product managers are also kind of sellers. They're selling the thing that they can do for the organization. Your job is, if you can't, how do I want to say this? A good product manager sells a vision. They come up with a goal that they want to accomplish for customers, and they go out there and they evangelize that vision and why that goal and that outcome and that business case is good and that they've solved things for people, and they get people on board and excited and want to participate in all of this. So, Bob, you've got a bunch of stakeholders and leadership that you need to go and do a sales job on. So you can either complain or look for the opportunities to improve it. And there are ways that you can do this. You're going to fail at it 10 times, but the one time you don't fail is going to start to build up your own credibility and help you improve this. So you're going to have a stakeholder come to you with a terrible half-baked bullshit idea, and they're going to tell you you need to go and implement it. And what you're going to do is tweak just one part of it. Ask them, how are they going to measure the success? How are they going to validate that the problem is correct? You're going to find one way to turn their half-baked idea into your proof of concept that your method works. And you're going to deliver a thing that's probably, what's the other opposite of half-baked? 3/4 baked instead. So you're going to take someone's half-baked idea, tweak it as much as you can, and that might be a little bit, and this might fail 10 times, but you're going to do your best. And when that 1 out of 10 times is finally successful, you're going to repeat it. And so after 30 crappy projects, it's going to suck and you're going to hate it. You should find a new job if you really don't want to do this. But if you're committed to being here, then what you're going to do is build up a case of evidence that your way is producing better results. And then you're going to go to leadership and say, hey, if you were actually measuring KPIs, validating the problem with clients and prospects beforehand, X, Y, and Z, doing all of the things that you want to do, then you could make the case why they should follow your path. Should you have to do that? No. Do you want to maybe go interview somewhere else? Yes, do that. Shut up. Or stay here and make the best out of it and go and find the small incremental wins. And that's frustrating and annoying. But the alternative is you continuing to be frustrated and complaining on Reddit about it, or do something about it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny when I see some of these The more I see of these, actually, the more fortunate in my career I realize I've been, because I've worked with some really good product managers. Like,
Right.
I've worked with, every discipline across engineering, whether it being like, this person wasn't up to snuff, but that was more about the person, not like the company's sort of guidance on the discipline. I just, yeah, a lot of these problems are foreign to me because I'm kind of spoiled. I've worked with you a lot, and I've worked with maybe the last 10, 15 years. I've my Rolodex has been the way I've got new jobs, and
Right.
so I'm often working with people that I'm like, I want to work with those people, right?
Right.
But I do hear a lot of these problems, and I'm like, I just haven't experienced them.
Well, and I've experienced plenty of this, and I am where I am in my career because I decided I was going to do what I could to fix it, and it sucks, and it's painful and slow. But what's the alternative? You're just going to be miserable in your job, or you're going to slowly find wins and incrementally make the place better, or go find somewhere else to work. But yeah, like there's either put a plan together and try, or I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think patience is I think patience is
Yeah.
also patience is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give someone, anyone in any discipline in tech. Uh, Patience, right? I remember being 23 and reading a JavaScript book and being like, the next day, like, why don't I get it? Why am I, why don't I understand JavaScript? It's like I started reading
Right.
about it yesterday, and I think you sort of think about getting old. Like what you get is patience and wisdom, right? And being an enterprise architect, we're talking about multi-year strategies.
Right.
Like currently halfway through a 5 to 6 year strategy. Like you got to have patience. Sometimes it can take you a year to sell the vision, convince people like, everybody else is going there. Like, why am I having such a hard time selling this vision? But I've always told any of the guys that work for me, it's like playing poker, right? Like, you got to stay in. You got to help people understand the win-win. Just takes patience, right? And a lot of these guys, I imagine, are younger than us and
I
experiencing these
guess.
things. Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that's fair advice. And I think I need people to come up with a strat. I mean, a good product manager tries a thing, tests, fails, and moves on. You should apply that to your organization. You should try to see if you can get the person to listen to this idea. Should you be able to measure it? Should you be able to go and do some validation? Should you have them do mock-ups with you first? Like you can just test things and they're going to fail a bunch, but you're going to find the strategies that work, which is just a good product manager skill. So apply your product management skills to your organization directly, not just the features that you're working on. Maverick 2K2. Yes, Agile has deadlines. There is a common misconception that deadlines don't exist in Agile, but they absolutely do. In Agile, time is fixed and the scope of work adapts accordingly. In other words, you have 2 months to deliver a feature, you deliver the best possible increment that reflects 2 months of focused work. You can then decide to deliver an improvement of that increment and allocate more time. And then somebody replied, username Kempeth, don't know what that's supposed to be. People who don't want to adjust scope don't want to adjust anything else either. They believe that if they insist strongly enough, reality will bend to their whims. And I think this is my number one frustration with engineering teams is this is 100% correct. I'm not saying we have to actually commit to, October 13th as the end of Friday deadline, but we can narrow in on more measurable and achievable windows that we can tell the rest of the business about by negotiating scope. And for some reason, that's a conversation that just engineering doesn't seem to often want to have as many times as product can say, yeah, let's go through and say, well, if the third acceptance criteria is, must be able to download an export file, if you all tell me that downloading doesn't work because the async jobs don't work right now, and that would be a whole bunch of tech debt to solve if we wanted to include that, and now it's going to suddenly be another 2 months of possible work, I might be able to negotiate and say, yeah, downloads aren't important right now. We can go through and find those things. I was listing out all of the things that we needed, but it can be a negotiation. And yeah, I just wish more people were open to this conversation. And I'm curious from your side on the engineering and enterprise architecture side, why aren't they more often?
Yeah, I don't know. This one's a tough one for me. I'm not sure if, like, I'm not sure I'm not even sure how much of this I've experienced where I'm trying to think of an example where someone's,
Because you and I do this every single time we talk about
yeah,
things. This is the thing. It's so natural for the two of us to talk about
yeah,
things. And you're like, yeah, man, but the microservice doesn't do that way. It has no awareness of that authentication. So I couldn't possibly call that at that point. And then it's like, well, okay, shit. I'll go back and have to rework the user flow to figure out what to do about that. And we just do that. I do think that this feels like a big company problem more than is a startup and mid-sized company problem. But yeah, it's wild that people don't know how to just have that as part of the conversation.
yeah, this one's a tough one. Maybe you and I, maybe we've worked together for too long. Maybe I need to go. Maybe I need to go work somewhere where it really sucks, with people who really suck. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I understand Reddit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I can't even think of examples where I've
No,
worked with somebody. I do. It is often interesting to me. I used to take. I used to take the time to go and visit the interns at FIU. And I was always amazed. I always used to spend, I always enjoyed going and looking at the building project management table.
sure.
I used to love it because, these guys, they got it's all printed off, right? They got these big plans and
Right.
like they've got assets on the table. And they got people coming in, the day after the electricians are leaving. They got the guys coming in, and they're hitting a deadline for the building. It's like there's no like, hey, just don't do the last 3 classrooms, right? We'll just like just leave them. So it's a very hard scope to those buildings. And I think some engineers maybe live under that same kind of like,
Sure.
this is the date it's going out, right? Like there's going to be commercials. Maybe that's part of it too. I often wonder, like, there's such a disconnect between like, well, what are the sales guys telling people? And to an engineers in the back rooms, like they have no idea, right? They have no idea at times what's being committed to. And so maybe that plays into it. But yeah, we
Yeah, so
talk so
just
frequently about this stuff. And
right. Just have the conversation. Just talk with folks about it.